The grand hall of King's Landing was alive with celebration. Torches blazed, casting flickering shadows along the stone walls, while the noise of the feast reverberated throughout. Noble children ran, their laughter echoing as they chased one another through the hall, their hands full of scraps of food. Lords and ladies raised their cups and toasts, their voices loud in the merriment of the moment. In the midst of all this, one figure stood apart. A boy, his small hands tightly clutching an old, leather-bound book, sat on a low bench near a pillar. His eyes were not on the festivities around him, but were instead focused on the words in the pages of the book. Rhaegar Targaryen, the crown prince of Westeros, sat alone, lost in the deep, ancient history that filled the book's pages. He wasn't interested in the children's games or the loud celebration. His mind was elsewhere, on the matters of the realm that would one day fall to him. Jon Aaron, Lord of the Vale, stood near the entrance, watching the prince from a distance. The hall was filled with life-children playing, nobles celebrating, but Rhaegar sat still, a young child already so distant from the simple pleasures that others of his age enjoyed. Lord Jon found this curiosity stirring within him and walked quietly over to the boy. "Why do you sit here alone, my prince, while all the other children play?" Jon asked as he approached, his voice calm and curious. Rhaegar looked up, startled at the question. His pale violet eyes met Jon's, and for a moment the young prince studied the man who had interrupted his solitude. Jon knelt to the boy's level, offering a gentle smile. "I am a prince, as you said," Rhaegar replied slowly. "I cannot play when there are more pressing matters. I must study and prepare for the future," Jon nodded, impressed by the boy's seriousness. "That's very dutiful of you. But even a prince deserves to have a bit of fun now and then. You are young, after all. Few children your age take their duties so seriously." Rhaegar's eyes softened, and a flicker of something close to a smile crossed his face. "Perhaps. But duty is the most important thing. It is what matters most." Jon chuckled softly. "Tell me, my prince, can you guess my house?" Rhaegar glanced at the white and blue colors that Jon wore. The people in the hall treated him with deep respect, and the way Jon carried himself suggested his high status. After a moment of contemplation, Rhaegar replied, "House Aaron, you wear white and blue, and everyone here seems to regard you highly." "Well done, my prince," Jon said with a smile. "You're correct. I am Jon Aaron, Lord Paramount of the Vale." Jon paused for a moment, looking at the book in Rhaegar's hands. "And what is it that you are reading, my boy?" "A book of prophecies, old tales, and histories," Rhaegar answered, his voice quiet yet resolute. "Some of them are not believed by many, but I think someone must remember them. If that someone must be me, then so be it." Jon's gaze softened with understanding. "A fine choice. But tell me, my prince, do you wish to see the world beyond these walls?" Rhaegar looked up, his expression contemplative. "I do. Perhaps one day I will. There is so much to learn, so much to understand." Jon smiled warmly. "Then you will see it. But take it from a man who has seen more winters than I care to count. Reading about the world is one thing, but experiencing it firsthand is something else entirely. The world can teach you lessons no book can." The two of them spoke quietly in that secluded corner of the hall. The rest of the feast continued around them, but no one seemed to pay much attention to the boy and the lord. Rhaegar shared his thoughts on the kingdom, on his future, and on his longing to see more of the world than the Red Keep could offer. Jon, in turn, spoke of his experiences in the Vale, of the lands beyond King's Landing, and the lessons he had learned as a lord. It wasn't just the prince who found something new in their conversation. Jon found a quiet admiration for Rhaegar, something rare in a boy so young. There was a depth to him that many of the adults Jon knew lacked. Rhaegar's curiosity and hunger for knowledge were like a flame that couldn't be quenched. In the days that followed, Jon took it upon himself to watch over the boy. He made sure Rhaegar had the best tutors, and when he could, Jon would offer his wisdom, teaching the prince more about the world, beyond the walls of the Red Keep. But what Jon had come to realize was that Rhaegar was no ordinary child. His mind was sharp, his sense of duty stronger than most adults Jon knew. While Rhaegar continued his studies in earnest, he began to show signs of a growing restlessness. Jon could see it in his eyes, in the way he sometimes stared out at the distant mountains, longing for something beyond the confines of the Red Keep. It wasn't until one evening, when Jon found Rhaegar standing alone by a window, his gaze fixed on the horizon, that the Lord finally spoke his mind. "You're ready for something more, aren't you?" Jon asked quietly, stepping beside the boy. Rhaegar didn't immediately answer. His violet eyes remained fixed on the distant horizon, where the sun was beginning to set over the mountains. "Yes, I want to see more. I want to know more. I want to learn how to lead, not just by reading, but by seeing the world for myself." Jon watched him for a moment, admiring the boy's courage and determination. "Then you shall," he said finally, his voice firm. "I have an idea. You will be given the chance to leave the Red Keep, to see the world, to learn what you cannot learn in these walls. You will be warded with me in the Vale." Rhaegar turned to him, surprise in his eyes. "Ward with you? But I am the Crown Prince. I cannot just leave." Jon smiled, a glint of understanding in his eyes. "That is precisely why you must. To become the man the realm needs, you must see beyond these walls, beyond your father's shadow. And perhaps in the Vale you will find something more, a new perspective, a chance to grow." Rhaegar was silent for a long time, his gaze unwavering. Finally he spoke, his voice soft but determined. "I will go," Jon nodded. "Good, you will learn, you will grow, and you will become the leader you are destined to be. And in the Vale you will find not only knowledge but also something even more precious, freedom." In the following days, preparations were made. Rhaegar packed his belongings carefully, each item chosen with care. Jon oversaw the details, ensuring that everything was in order for the long journey north. The Knight of the King's Guard, Harlan Granderson, was selected to accompany them, a seasoned knight who would offer guidance and protection on their journey. As the time for departure drew near, Rhaegar stood at the gates of the Red Keep, looking back at the city that had been his world for so long. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with both excitement and fear. Jon stood beside him, offering quiet reassurance. "You are ready for this, Rhaegar? This is your chance to see the world and make your own future." And with that, the prince and the lord rode north, leaving behind the familiar sights of King's Landing and heading into the unknown. The journey to the Vale was unlike anything Rhaegar had ever experienced. For the first time in his young life, he was away from the bustle of King's Landing, away from the constant eyes of the court. The Red Keep faded behind him as he rode north, the familiar stone walls replaced by the vast, open landscape of the Vale. It was a world of mountains and mist, a place where life was slower, quieter, and far removed from the chaos of the capital. Rhaegar marveled at the change. The Vale was a land of striking contrast, towering cliffs that seemed to touch the sky, deep valleys shrouded in mist, and small villages that seemed to exist in harmony with nature. He had never seen anything like it before. It was a place of peace where time seemed to stand still. As they approached the Eyrie, Jon Aaron, his guardian and mentor, spoke of the land's history. The Eyrie was an ancient stronghold, perched high on a mountain, its towering walls looming over the surrounding landscape. Rhaegar couldn't help but be in awe of its sheer size and beauty. It was a place of strength, a symbol of the Vale's resilience. Once they arrived at the Eyrie, Rhaegar was struck by the quiet solemnity of the place. It was nothing like the vibrant, noisy courts of King's Landing. Here, the air was crisp, the people more reserved, and the atmosphere thick with the weight of history. The lord and his wards settled into the rhythms of the Vale, and Rhaegar quickly found himself engrossed in his studies once again. His passion for learning had not diminished, but now, it felt like there was more space, more time to think, to reflect, to grow. Jon observed the young prince closely. He could see the boy's sharp mind at work, always questioning, always seeking knowledge, but there was something else too. Rhaegar had an intensity about him that seemed far beyond his years. The boy carried the weight of his future on his shoulders, and Jon could see it in his every movement, every word. On the days when Rhaegar finished his studies early, Jon would take him on long walks through the Vale, showing him the landscape, introducing him to the people, and sharing stories of the land. Rhaegar was eager to learn everything he could about this new world. He saw the Vale as a place where he could learn not only about history, but also about leadership, about ruling with wisdom and compassion. The lessons Jon imparted were invaluable. but it was the land itself that spoke the loudest. It wasn't long before two new wards arrived at the Eyrie. Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark, both around Rhaegar's age, had been sent to the Vale as well. Robert, full of energy and brimming with mischief, was the complete opposite of Rhaegar. He was loud, boisterous, and always looking for the next adventure. He didn't have the seriousness or intensity that Rhaegar did, but there was a certain charm about him that drew people in. Ned Stark, on the other hand, was quiet and reserved, his gray eyes always observant. He had a stillness about him that was almost unnerving, but it was this quiet strength that Rhaegar admired. Where Robert was impulsive and quick to act, Ned was thoughtful and deliberate. Rhaegar could see the wisdom in Ned's actions even at a young age. At first, Rhaegar watched them from a distance, unsure of how to approach. Robert was loud and unrestrained, while Ned was calm and composed. But soon enough, Robert's energy drew Rhaegar into their world. Robert challenged him to a sparring match, laughing and taunting him as they went at it with practiced swords. To everyone's surprise, Rhaegar was skilled. His movements were fluid, his technique precise. Robert's grin widened, and for the first time, Rhaegar felt something stir within him, a sense of camaraderie. "Not bad, Prince," Robert said with a grin, clapping him on the back a little too forcefully. Rhaegar stiffened at first, surprised by the rough familiarity, but then something unexpected happened. He smiled, a rare thing for him, and for the first time in his life he didn't feel burdened by the weight of his crown. He felt like a boy, like one of them. Ned watched from the sidelines, a small smile on his face as he observed his two friends. Robert, ever the loud one, had found a way to pull Rhaegar out of his shell. And Rhaegar, despite his stoic nature, had accepted Robert's challenge. The three of them had formed an unlikely bond. They were different, yet somehow they complemented each other perfectly. Over the next few weeks, the three boys spent their time together. Robert, as always, was the life of the party, dragging them into various adventures while Ned offered his calm and steady wisdom. Rhaegar, ever the serious one, found himself laughing at Robert's jokes and listening intently to Ned's quiet counsel. It was a new experience for him. He had never had friends like these, never had the chance to be just a boy, away from the expectations of his title. One evening, the three of them sat by a hearth, talking about their lives, their futures, and the challenges that lay ahead. Robert spoke of his dreams of ruling Storm's End, of the land he would one day inherit. Ned talked about the North, about his family and the honor that ran deep in his blood. Rhaegar, his harp in hand, strummed a few notes as he listened. The music filled the air, soft and soothing, and for a moment the weight of the future seemed distant. They were just three boys, gathered together in the quiet of the Vale, forming a bond that would shape their destinies. Jon Aaron watched from a distance, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. This was what he had hoped for, these boys, these heirs to the realm, forming a bond stronger than any bloodline. They were not bound by politics or power, but by something deeper, something more enduring. Rhaegar, Robert, and Ned would go on to shape the future of the realm in ways they could not yet understand. But in that moment, in the quiet halls of the Eyrie, they were simply three friends, bound together by their shared experiences, their laughter, and their dreams for the future.